Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
I'm sitting with a podcast host. So we were just talking off camera. It's going to be fun for, you get to be the guest.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Not very common.
Courtney Williams. I'm super excited to pick your brain. So you were introduced to me from a mutual friend, and I really appreciated it. And I got to dig in. You filled out like the little, I don't know, like the little descriptor thing when we were making the scheduling the podcast. And so I got to learn a little bit about you, and then obviously check out the website for the company that you work for. But other than that, I don't know anything. So this is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
But I do know that I believe you've fostered 70 plus kids.
Crazy.
Something like that.
Yeah.
You have 9 now.
We do have 9 children.
6 of which came from
adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And you work in the foster industry. You work for, I wrote it down, America's Kids Belong.
Yeah.
And then you also host a podcast. And what's the name of your podcast?
The Foster Friendly Podcast.
The Foster Friendly Podcast.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, we're going to talk all things foster. It's actually really cool. I've had a couple people on that have come through the foster program that have ended up being incredibly high performers and just amazing, amazing people. But I've never been able to talk to somebody on the other side of it. So anyway, thank you for being here. Excited to pick your brain.
Happy to be here.
Talk to me the beginning. How in the world I was going to say to somebody, but we'll talk about that in the business context in a little bit. But how in the world do you get started in foster care? Walk me through kind of how this all started for you.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. But my husband and I dealt with infertility when we first got married. And so we started talking. We both wanted to be parents and started looking into foster care and adoption. And then we got pregnant. So then we ended up having our first child, Eli. And after Eli was born, we actually got foster certified. We were living in Montana at the time. We got certified. And then we were like, wait, we cannot do this fostering thing. We have a child now. It's going to ruin him. Like, we got to protect our child. All right. So we put it on pause, didn't do any fostering, moved to North Dakota 2 years later and got certified again. And then we started taking kiddos at that point.
With a kid already.
At that point, we had 2 kids. Yeah. And the third, I don't remember if he was on the way or shortly after on the way. So yeah, had a couple of kids at that point. And then we started doing what's called respite care. So it's short-term care for kiddos that need like very short-term situations, or if a foster parent is going on vacation or they need a break. We were doing that type of care for a while. And then it wasn't until our third child was born that we started taking longer-term placements. And so he's 15 now. So
15 years ago.
15 years ago.
I'm curious. I totally understand, infertility and like digging down the path of adoption or fostering. What I'm fascinated about is that you went down that path even especially after having kids.
Yeah.
Why?
More so my husband, which is really odd because usually it's the other way around. Usually it's like a wife, a lady has this on her heart and she's trying to convince her husband of fostering. And for us, it was the other way around. My husband got it in his heart and he grew up in a pretty abusive home. And so he's always wanted to support kids and bring in kids he lived in people's couches for many years, just kind of couch surfing. He had a mom the whole time, very present mom, but he got kicked out of the house a lot. And so he was constantly kind of like roaming around. So he was like, I really want to change somebody's life like people did for me. And so it was one of those things that he was like, we're doing this. And then I got nervous, like again, as the wife, which is not common. So.
I bet. Yeah. And so, okay, so walk me through then that, like now you've got kids, obviously, and I understand like, the calling from the husband and the desire to, serve and whatever. Is there hesitancy on your end? Are you nervous? Like with all those unknowns at the beginning, what do you think made you take the leap and start fostering?
Yeah.
Because that's a major commitment, obviously.
For sure. Again, I think funny enough, on our first date, I told him I wanted 27 kids. Now, I was totally joking. I really thought we'd have like 3 or 4 kids, I was not meaning anything, but it was like the test. Like, if I say this out loud, is he going to be like, you are absolutely insane, or what's he going to do? And he responded in a very fun way. And he was like, interesting. I'm not scared off by that. And so it was one of those things. I come from a family. My grandma has 9 children on my mom's side. On my dad's side, there's 8 kids. And so I just grew up around large families. And so as we started having kids, I was like, I really want our kids to have like what I have when we go to family gatherings and there's people all over the place. It's like, we can do this. We can bring in more kids. And then it just became, we are Christians. And so it also became part of like, we felt like a calling of, we're not going to have any more biological kids. We kind of know what that was like. And now we're just going to start fostering and adopting. So
it's wild.
Yeah. Totally off the cuff for what I would have thought.
I mean, and I'm just envisioning this now, like, two kids at home, three eventually, and then, opening up your home to all these other kids. Walk me through what that's like at the beginning. Now I'll say it like, jokingly, but you're a veteran now, like you're an expert. But those early days, what's that like?
Yeah, it was intimidating. So we said we didn't want to bring in kids that were older than our oldest at the time. So our son Eli had to have been 6, 7 at this point that we started fostering. And sure enough, our very first placement is a 6 and 8-year-old. So not much older, but like his same age. We were thinking more like babies, which is what a lot of people do. People come into this thing, I want to foster, I want to adopt. I'm talking just babies, little kids. And that's just not the reality. The reality is most of the kids in care are actually older kids.
Interesting.
So that's one thing that we were, we just had to kind of open. It was like, 6 and 8, that's not too far off from where our son is, So we said yes. They were almost with us for a short period of time, but just, again, opened our hearts, especially for the mom, because their mom was in a really tough situation. We got to know her.
You did.
So, and that's common, too, of getting to know the birth parents. And that's one of our big heartbeats, is getting to know them and welcome them into our lives and kind of support them and getting their kids back to them. And, again, that very first case was very short-lived. Mom just needed some help during the summer. Kids were being uncared for during the summer months until we had them until school started. But then, like, forming that relationship and then seeing, like, this mom with this 6 and 8-year-olds solo parenting, how can we look at her and say, I can't believe you were leaving your kids home alone all day. What else is she going to do?
Right.
So our hearts just completely changed for the birth parents. And then that kind of led into a lot of older kids because, again, it is the need. So we'd get these calls, and that's what happens. You get a phone call saying, hey, we've got this kiddo that came into care. They are X years old. It's a boy or it's a girl. There's 2 or 3 of them or one of them. And they give you like a little bit of information and then say, can this kid come into your home or not? And you have to kind of make a decision pretty quickly.
Like essentially immediately?
Not usually. I mean, we always talk to each other. So I always call my husband first. And now that we have kids, we always talk to the kids. Like, what do you guys think about this? So we always do that. And they know that. Like, they know that we're not going to tell them yes or no, on the fly. But within a few hours, you kind of have to make that decision for sure.
Talk to me more about the program in general, fostering in general. Because you had mentioned like building a relationship with birth parents and kids going back to them and stuff, which it's all new to me.
Yeah.
Is that the goal of fostering? Is it that it's meant to be temporary and go back to
yes.
the biological family, or explain that to me?
Yeah. So when a kid enters care, goes to the court, and the court says yes, or a judge will say yes, this kid there's something going on that they do need to stay in care. Or sometimes the judge is like, nope, this isn't, substantial enough. They need to just go home right now. So that first court hearing happens within 72 hours of a kid entering care. Then they enter care, and automatically their first goal is reunification.
Good.
So that'll be the first goal. But then they always have a side goal, a concurrent goal, plan B, just in case that doesn't happen. And so plan B might be going with grandparents. It might be adoption. It might be guardianship. There's different things that could happen if they don't get reunified, but it's always going to reunification first as the first goal.
What, and I know you're not like a statistician or anything, but from your knowledge or your experience, what percentage?
Roughly 50%
ends up reunification. Is that the word?
That's
reunited.
United.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So I'm curious. Then talk to me about, because obviously you entered fostering with a great heart, and your dad your husband and everybody, like with the best of intentions. And I would imagine that the vast majority of foster families have those intentions. I got to imagine though that then there's some complexity with like being the best foster home for those kids as possible, knowing that the end goal is reunification. I'll have to remember that word for. Yeah. Talk to me about that balance.
It's hard. It's the biggest thing I get when I try to recruit foster families. I talk to people all the time, and the biggest question, I get 2 big questions all the time. What if I get too attached? And what about my own kids? Those are like the 2 questions people always have. But
and what about them getting too attached?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the kids too. And that's hard because right now, 2022, I believe it was, there's a new federal act called the Families First Act, which means now they have to do more to even remove a kid. So, it used to be, like had multiple kids come to us over the years who came from birth, child was born substance positive. And so they were automatically put in foster care. That's not the case anymore. Now they're going to do anything they can to give that parent a case plan to support them and give them time to show that they can do it, even though this was the situation, and they're not going to remove the kids from care. So getting kids removed has become a lot harder. There's pros and cons to that, right? It's not necessarily a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. But because of that, so it's harder to get them placed into care. And then once they're in care, that means that there's a pretty big reason, right? Again, before it used to be, sometimes it could be smaller reasons. Now it's like, no, there's a big reason why this kiddo is being removed and they really can't be at home right now. So then it's harder for the parents to also get the kid back because there's a bigger reason.
Right.
So that means, in the state of Colorado, they're supposed to be reunified within 1 year if they are 5 or younger, and then within 18 months if they're over 5. But it's just messy. That doesn't happen to, parents given a case plan. Say it's substance abuse and poverty and not caring for the kids, right? They're going to be given a case plan that says the parent needs to take parenting classes. They need to show they have a job. They need to do urine tests, weekly and be good on those for months long and all these things. So they give like a checklist. You've got to do this and this and this and this to get your kid back. Well, sometimes parent might be working on 1 or 2 of those things, and then sometimes they go MIA or they fall off the tracks a little bit.
Right.
And then they'll
like
come back.
All do.
Yeah. And then they'll come back and they'll be working on it. And so the judge will say, well, it was supposed to be a year, but you're doing really well right now, so I'm going to give you a couple extra months. And so sometimes it can prolong, longer than the year. So you go back to the question you asked about getting attached. Imagine a kid being in your house for a year or a year and a half. How do you not get attached, right? And how do the kids not get attached too? So it is very complex.
What's your advice to families, like when you're recruiting families and asking those questions about navigating that and balancing it? And how do you personally do that?
I think the biggest thing is these kids are going to be somewhere. So, truly, there are kids, even in our county, who have multiple times come from our house or come from a hotel into our house. Like they were staying in a hotel with a caseworker, sometimes with a police officer, because there's literally not a home for them to go to. It's like, we need foster homes. Would you rather they be sitting in a hotel, or do you rather your heart gets tugged a little bit or broken a little bit and these kids are in a safe place and a loving place? It's like, who would not choose that for any kid to be in a home setting versus in a hotel with a police officer? It's sad. It's the reality.
Is there a big shortage of foster homes?
Yes.
And I want to hear more of your story, but to touch a little bit on, the work side of things. But with your work with America's Kids Belong, is that a national thing? Is that state? Is it local? And is there shortage?
Definitely. I don't know of any place where there's not a shortage. Now, that means different things, different places. And even here, so we have roughly 10 homes. It might be plus or minus a little bit. 10 licensed homes right now in La Plata County.
That seems low.
It is low.
But of course, as I'm thinking about it, it's such a big commitment. But 10 seems low.
Yeah. Their goal, they tell me, is 20. So they want to double the amount of homes they have. And that doesn't always mean like long-term homes. Even like I was saying at the beginning, we are a respite home. Having homes that are like that very short term, or having homes that will be the in-between place for a few days, that's a need. We had a kiddo in our care a couple months ago, and we were leaving town for a funeral, and we knew he couldn't come with us. The whole situation, he couldn't come with us. And there was not another home in the county that was licensed that was able to take him. So the caseworker was like, do you know anybody that he has now formed a relationship with being in your home that could take him for the weekend? And that's usually not the case. Usually they're like, no, they have to go to a licensed foster home for, more than 24 hours. And so he actually went to stay with my 21-year-old son and his roommates in an apartment because there was literally not another place for him to go.
Wow. Yeah.
And they give approval. They got fingerprinted really quickly and background checked and did the stuff. Right. But it was still like, that's not typical that's. So that was kind of rushed because, like I said, we don't even have homes it was a 2-night situation. And there was not a single home in our county to take him in. Yeah.
And it's something that I like, I don't know, and just the nature of it has to be sensitive, obviously, it's private. Like, what an interesting conflicting reality that you're living in with the private nature of the problem you're helping solve and the need for, growth and exposure and, all of that stuff. And I know that you wear the marketing hat, a lot of times at work. Walk me through kind of that of like balancing those two realities. It's this need in this recruiting marketing world. And then I have no idea insights into need of, foster kids locally, let alone nationally or anything like that. That's got to be a challenging balance.
It is. And so our organization, we have a few different goals, but one of them is to recruit more families and then to retain those families that we recruit nationally. And then we have different chapters. We do have a Colorado chapter. I used to work for the Colorado chapter, which is all the same organization, but specifically for the Colorado chapter. And then I moved to the national organization when we moved to Durango 2 years ago. So I get all these stories, I get all these inquiries on the internet all the time. But one of our initiatives is called the I Belong Project, where they record. These are kiddos who they were not able to be reunified. So they were not reunified. They're now waiting for an adoptive home, usually teenagers who are just sitting waiting in a foster home, hoping to be adopted by a family.
Gosh.
And so we do videography, and they go and they ask them questions and get to know them, because a family's more likely to say yes to somebody or put in an inquiry about a kid if they see a video of them than just a picture or a name, right? So we get to know them a little bit. We have these fun video shoots, but it is really sensitive. You think these are teenagers that are now going to be posted online or posted on social media for people to see. And there's that side of this. And I was like, people, will comment all the time, like, we're shopping for kids, or this is shopping for kids. This is exposing kids. But it's also like, but these kids need a home. So it's just this really fine balance of like, how much do you share? How much do you not share? And of course, a kid has to give their permission, teenagers, if they say no, or if they come back even months later and say, take my video down, we take their video down. But it is very hard. And we have critiques, people that are critiquing that situation all the time. But then on the flip side, it's like, what else do you want us to do?
Right.
These kids are waiting and going to age out of foster care, which is super sad. And the realities of that are just drastic. What happens when a kid ages out?
What happens when a kid ages out?
I don't know all the statistics exactly, but we think about like homelessness, incarceration rates, young pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies. Those things just dramatically increase when a kid was in foster care and ages out without a family.
Yeah.
So, we think about foster care, and you think about it as like this one little very specific thing, but really foster care is touching on all these community things around us: homelessness, drug addiction, pregnancies, incarceration. All those things are affected by foster care.
Yeah.
And so if we kind of get these kids into good homes, and if we support them, I know you were just saying that you've interviewed people before that were foster youth at one point, and it is true. If they have statistics show that if they have one caring adult in their life, when they age out, that they feel like I've got somebody behind me, their statistics change drastically.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a community-wide thing. It's not even just the foster parents, right? It goes so much deeper.
Yeah, which makes so much sense. And again, how complex the topic is because of the community impacts. Obviously the impacts on the family. I'm curious, and it's funny because again, and I'm just learning a lot right now. That's why I'm just going to ask you the questions that come up. But when I think about it, I think the picture that's painted in my mind is young children.
Mm-hmm.
You never think about the teenager that's making a video.
Yeah.
To find a home. What's that like for them? Like how? Trying to think how to context this, but I've got 3 kids and I'm far from a perfect dad, but I'm trying my hardest. And I'm a very intentional dad in the sense that I'm working really hard to instill good traits in them, hopefully avoid, passing down traumas and, just doing the best we know how. The nature of that situation is trauma riddled, because they're there anyway. And then it's navigating through that. What's the narrative? Like how do you navigate? What a delicate moment, of like everybody every human in the world wants a family. Like that's the only thing. In fact, like just the other day, we were talking about, we were looking at global events and whatever. And I'm like, gosh, how lucky are we that we're safe? And, because all of humanity just really wants 2 things. They want to be safe and they want to be with their family.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's all really any human being wants, no matter what country, whatever. It's so core to us. Walk me through just kind of like the general bigger picture messaging or narratives, especially as kids are starting to get older and, painting a picture of their reality and stuff. Like what's the, from somebody like you, who's an expert in the space and who've impacted so many lives, what's the story that you tell?
For us, it's more the story we tell to the kids that come into our home than the story we tell other people.
Yes,
because we want them
and
to
that's
be
what kills me.
empowered. Yeah. And even more so than family is the sense of belonging. And that's why our organization is called America's Kids Belong. Like, we want them to feel belonging, because some of them will never get to the point of feeling that it's family, even though that's the goal, right? We want them to feel like family doesn't have to be your blood. You belong here.
Right.
You're welcome here. So when kid enters our care, again, typically right now it's teenagers. In La Plata County, we've been here for 2 years now. We've had, I should have counted, I don't know, just say 15 kids in and out of our house through La Plata County. 2 of them have been younger. The rest of them have been teenagers. All right, so all these teenagers coming into care. And, going back to my husband's story, at some point in our journey with them, he's able to sit down and, they're having a really rough day. And that's what happens. I mean, we all have rough days, right? But then you have these kids that come into care who have not been taught like how to deal with their emotions or how to handle conflict resolution with people. So that's a lot of our time, is teaching them conflict resolution, teaching them what to do when you're angry, letting them have their space and all the stuff, right? But there becomes a point where they start to trust you, and that takes time. It's not like an overnight thing. It's not even a weekly thing. Some kids, but most kids, it's like
months.
Yeah, I'm months in, and now this kid's finally starting to break down some barriers. We're now able to connect a little bit. And then, sometimes it's tears. Sometimes it's like you can just see it's a sense of when I think they're starting to trust us. And you just know, after time, you just know. Like, you can feel that in the kids. And then we start sharing with them. My husband doesn't share with them his past and his childhood right away. It's more like when we get to that point of, I think this kid will now listen to me. Because they come into our house. My husband's a home builder. We've got a big, beautiful house, right? And they come and they just think like, oh, Bobby and Courtney and their kids, they have it all put together. Their lives have been beautiful and easy. And this is just not me.
They've never struggled.
Yeah. And so then we can say, no, this is how we got here. And this is where we were before. And when you can say that to a kid and tell them, like, your past does not have to determine your future, that is like a game changer. And when kids actually believe that, then it's like, okay, now I can really get somewhere with this kid.
Right.
Sometimes you'll tell them that and they won't believe it for, a few more months down the road until they're like, okay, I actually have people behind me and now I can see. There's this new act, a bipartisan act right now, or bill that they're trying to put out. And they're trying to put out this bill that is for youth who have aged out of foster care, that they can use their vouchers, their housing vouchers, for on-campus housing. And so one of our latest podcast interviews, we interviewed one of the congressmen who's putting together this bill, and he was asking me all these questions, and I was telling him, so many kids when they come into our care, they don't even know about stuff like that. Like, right. To know, like, and it's not about government assistance, right? But these kids come with nothing. Right. But if they have people behind them to say, hey, college is a reality for you, and this is why, and this is why, and this is why, then they're more likely to do that. I mean, right now it's like 4% of former foster youth graduate from college. I mean, that's dramatically different than the average public. Yeah. So if we can get them to believe in themselves to graduate high school, that's a first step. And then to think, oh, I've got family or belonging with people, whether they're adopted or whether they just have that connection afterward. And then they can go into college. I mean, it's just like this cycle, right? This circle that just keeps going and going. Like, how far is it going to go down the hill, or is it going to stop because there's roadblocks, or are they going to get over those roadblocks?
Because you get to inject some hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which is the most fun.
So I have a 2-part question, but I'll start with the fun one first. What's the best part about being a foster parent?
Oh, seeing them grow, for sure. Hands down. Seeing a kid come into your home that is angry at the world, mad, sad, feeling rejected, feeling they have no voice, and then seeing that change. Best thing. I mean, we would not keep doing it if it wasn't for that. Right. Yeah.
Because how long have you been doing it? 15 years?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part?
That's hard to narrow down to one thing. Some of the hard things are wanting to change certain things that you don't have control over. Some of the red tape, the system. Again, we've got I love our county. I love our county workers here. We were in Fort Collins before this. It is so much better, so different here than it is in a large city like that.
Aren't we lucky?
Oh, we are so lucky.
Durango's the best for so many reasons.
I agree. And fostering is one of them.
Yes.
But there's still, federal red tape and state red tape and some things we can't change. So that's hard. And then also when you see kids just struggle. Yeah. And it's hard when you try so hard and feel like you're not getting anywhere.
So I volunteered as a firefighter EMT for 8 years. And my brother's a full-time firefighter. And there's some interesting like mental boundaries that, I learned to set with that, because the best way, and I've explained it like this to multiple people, but it's an interesting world that I was living in, because every time something bad happened, not only was I aware of it, it was, I've received a notification
Yeah.
that a bad thing occurred. Like we joke that, we don't get invited to birthday parties. We knew about every bad thing, that happened. Literally, it's on our phone. It's going off. We have to acknowledge it in one way or the other, we're going or not, or whatever. And that it changed a lot of like, just my perspective of our community and how often bad things happen and that they can happen to anybody and whatever, it's just a whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting thing to invite that into my home, knowing though that my intention is to go help. Like that, that's why I did it. And it was the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I loved it. It was way better for me than anybody I helped, like I'm the one who got the help because of it. So I say that to say, it's an interesting, and I hope I choose my words correctly here, but it's an interesting human being that is willing to open up their home to, for sure, challenges. And not to say that there's not more good than bad. Like, I think that likely there is, or you wouldn't be doing it for 15 years. But you're choosing to be involved in a challenging situation, at the very least.
Yeah.
Walk me through that and why.
Yeah, and I'm not downplaying firefighters, EMT, anything like that. But I will say the one difference between them is these people are coming into our home.
Yes.
So, like you go out there and you fight a fire, you help somebody, you get them, but they're not coming into your home. Right. And so that is one thing, like, because I don't think a lot of people think about that.
Yeah. Like, well, I think of how energy intensive parenting is in general,
Oh, yeah.
and
now it's 24/7 with a kid that comes from something hard.
Right. Why?
Yeah. Because we see the change. And not only in them, but in ourselves. I mean, our kids, so going back, so we thought, we got licensed when our firstborn was born. And then we're like, nope, this is going to ruin him. Like, there's no way we can do this. And then ended up doing it later. And that son actually just graduated high school. He's in Marine boot camp, the Marines boot camp right now. And I actually interviewed him for our Foster Friendly podcast a couple months ago. And I was able to, I did not sit down with, it was him and his sister. So 18-year-old, 16-year-old. Our two oldest biological kids. That's confusing too, because we have 3 older kids that were adopted, but our 3 bios are in the middle. And I sat down with them and I asked them all these questions. I didn't prep them. I gave them a list of questions I was going to probably ask them, but I did not say this. And I was honestly nervous.
You weren't coaching them up.
I was like, I don't know. And I told them, I said, I want you to be 100% honest. Like what, and I was asking them questions like, do you feel like foster care is ruined you? Do you feel like it was a good, because they've been fostering pretty much, I mean, they were little kids.
And they didn't have a choice.
And they didn't have a choice.
At least early on.
Yeah. And they both, to hear their answers of how much it has impacted their lives and how much they feel like they're ready and prepared for the world because of it. And it brought me to tears. I was just sobbing, listening to my kids say, this has made me a better person. And my son saying, I'm going off to boot camp where I'm going to be with guys that I don't agree with or I don't want to be with. I can't stand them. It's like that. I've been trained on how to deal with that and how to get through that and how to meet people at their needs and look at it and know every single person has a story. And there's a reason behind these behaviors. And that's what we tell our kids. Like, we always sit down and coach them through, because we've had some pretty hard situations in our home. Death threats. We've had things thrown at us. We've had, walls broken and things like that. A lot of times our kids are there watching. Yeah. So we have to coach them through that too, in the moment, after, before. And one thing we always tell them over and over and over, there's a reason behind this behavior. Let's not judge the kid for what their behavior right now. Let's get back, why are they doing this? There's a reason. And that one takeaway for our kids to take into life and to know my colleagues, the people, my neighbors, people that do things that I'm like, I just can't, instead of just judging them, knowing there's a reason behind it. Is there any way I can support them through it and see empathy, having empathy behind people's behaviors. I mean, if I can teach my kids compassion and empathy, we did something.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah. No, I love that. The story behind the action. Yeah. And I think, honestly, the world would be such a better place if all of us, defaulted to compassion and empathy.
Yeah. And not that it's okay. Like, those behaviors aren't okay.
Of course not. Right.
But there's a reason, and let's get behind there, understand this reason and get under that so we can move forward rather than letting a kid be stuck there for years. Some of these kids that come in, like I said, they have no coping mechanisms. They don't know. I mean, when you've got teenagers who are acting like they're two emotionally because they have no clue how to handle their emotions.
Right.
It's sad, for one, but then when you can see them, now I see them as a 6-year-old, and a couple months later, like, oh, now they're acting like a 10-year-old. Like, seeing that growth, I mean, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it seems like, obviously, in hindsight, not in hindsight, but like, your kids are grown and gone and, or, getting there. Like, you're at a different chapter now.
Yeah.
Were there ever times when you doubted, like,
Oh, yeah.
and I relate to it a lot in the sense of like the desire to serve. Like, I say over and over again that I really do believe that one of the most direct paths to a fulfilling life is through service of others. Like, period. I call it selfish service.
Yeah.
And it's just a little thing of mine. Like, if you want help, help others. Like, if you need to get lifted up, go find somebody else to lift up. And it comes back. We have it on the wall in here, giver's gain.
Yeah.
Like, it's core to who I am. It's how I built the company and raised my family. I mean, like, I thank my dad for that. But, I've always been a huge believer in the power of service. Sometimes, like for me, for firefighting, there was a couple times I'd be on a wildland call and I'd be like, why, what am I doing?
Oh, yeah.
I need to be home. Like, this is crazy. But, you do it anyway, and you make the most of it. But were there ever moments when you're like, this is too much?
Oh, yeah. There's still those moments. And we call it the interruptible life. Like, we tell our kids, like, our life as foster parents, it is foster family. We're living an interruptible life. And we keep saying yes to that. Like, are we still willing to be interrupted in the middle of the night, in the middle of a birthday party, in the middle of whatever it might be? Like, we've had to leave things before because kids, we go to a family gathering and kids are throwing a fit because they're not used to being around these types of situations.
Right.
So you have to get up and leave and things like that. And it's like, every time things like that happen, it's like, is this worth it? Is this worth it? And then just know, like, this is a kid's life we're talking about. But, I mean, there is also the balance of, we have kids. So we actually just last week, we sat down with our caseworkers. You have to be recertified every year. And so, it's time's up. Are you ready to be recertified? Do you guys want to be recertified? And, right now, our answer has been yes. I'll tell you that story in a little bit. But for the most part, our answer has been yes for the last 15 years. But it's not like just a, yes, we're going to do it. It's always a, like, are we in a good spot mentally, emotionally, our family, our kids? And we ask our kids every single year and every single placement. We just had a kiddo in our home. This is only the second time, maybe the third, in 15 years where a kid was in our home where we had to say, we can't continue with this kiddo. And that is super hard to do.
I bet.
A kid, you've committed to letting them come in your home, but then it's like havoc every day and chaos. And when something like that happens, we really have to evaluate. Like, we know that it's going to hurt this kid, and we don't want to hurt this kid by saying they need to move on to another home. But there are times where, like, if it's hurting our family, we do still have to
protect
family
yourself.
first.
Yeah.
Like, our kids, we are entrusted to first, and we're going to protect them. And so when that happens, I mean, it's really hard for us to do. But we had one of those just a couple weeks ago, and very, very hard kiddo that really is, they're looking for a residential home for her because that's where she needs to be right now.
Right.
So very, very high level. But when there were threats and stuff to our kids in our, we've got a 5-year-old still at home, and when she's hearing those things, there's certain things that we know as foster parents, your kids are going to hear words you don't want them to hear. They're going to be exposed to things, they're going to be talking, kids will just share stuff. We have the dinner table and they'll start talking about something. They're like, whoa, we got a 5-year-old here, remember? Right. And so we expect some of that. Like, you got to know that's going to happen. But there are certain things where it's like, okay, now this is pushed the line a little too far. And we have to say that this is best for our family.
Yeah. One of the things I've learned, so my business is finally maturing in a great way. And one of the things I've learned, so early on, you say yes to everybody and everything, because you need the projects, you need the revenue, it's like, yes. I'm learning now, and I do most of the sales, and I have some sales reps, but until very recently, I've been doing all of the sales for the company. And my tactic has changed as I learned more about, now I'm almost like, I'm blunt with, I don't promise anything. tell them what to expect. I downplay it. You know, I'm like, here's what I would do. Here's what you're going to get. And I found that my clients really respond well to it. And it's like, it's actually refreshing for them because it positions me as more authority and they trust me more and whatever. Because I found that if I can under promise and over deliver, my life's way better than if I over promise and under deliver.
100%.
How in the world do you recruit foster families? And do you like, are there times when you're like, because I would imagine that there's an obligation of painting a real picture about it and like figuring out if it's a fit or not.
Oh yeah.
Walk me through that.
And that we've changed dramatically. So my husband and I used to, you know, try to kind of recruit anybody. Like, oh, we need foster homes, we need foster homes, we need this, you know, and we go up in front of churches, we go up in front of businesses, we go up in front of Rotary clubs, like all the time. I mean, I'm talking like 10 years ago. This is what we did. It was like our mission to get more.
It's like the early days of business. Yeah.
And then we realized, wait a second, no, we need to first keep the ones that we have, but also like, we almost want to talk people out of it before we talk them into it.
That's what I was curious about.
And because it needs to be the heart. And there is a reality, you get a stipend. And so some people, we've seen this happen, people that you can just kind of tell they're doing it for the money, even though the money's supposed to be for the kids. And it's not that much money, but people will do that, you know. Oh, I want to be a stay-at-home parent. And my only goal in this is to just be a foster parent and foster as many kids as I can so I can stay at home. And then but there was no other reasoning behind it.
Right.
You know.
How much is the stipend?
It depends on the age. So say like $50 a day.
Okay.
For a kid. Yeah. And probably a little bit lower, but on average.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
So it's not enough.
It's not enough for sure to be like a job.
Right.
You know, and it's not. But telling people what it's really like is key, because if they don't know that, I mean, what disservice do we do? Then they get a kid in their care. Like I said, we've happened twice that I can think of it. Like one kind of on the line, it was kind of more of a department decision that the kid had to be moved. So really 2 times where we said this kiddo has to move on, and it is really hard. And I don't want to see that happening. I mean, average kid in care changes houses 3 times a year.
Wow.
And so you imagine a kid that's already going through stuff, then they get into a foster home and they get settled, and then they're, oh, now you're moving to this home, and then they get settled and they move into this home. It does not help.
No.
So, I mean, if a kid can stay in one home, by far the best thing for one healthy, good home, by far the best thing for that kid. So we want to recruit families that are able to stay with a kid and not just, oh, something got hard, they got to go.
Right.
And so knowing those realities and also coaching them through it, but knowing those realities is definitely key, for sure.
How do you tell if somebody's a good fit for it?
Oh, well, luckily that's not my job, so I don't make that decision. But I can often kind of tell, just personality. You have to be a little laid back. You also have to be, it's like that middle road. You can't be really far one way or the other in a lot of things. Like, you need to have structure. Definitely these kids need structure, but you have to be extremely flexible.
Yeah.
So it's like very structured, but very flexible, you know, like opposite ends.
Always on course, never on track.
Like, there you go. Yeah. So, you know, when you get people that are like, oh, this is exactly the way that I parent. I'm never going to parent any differently. And this is the way we do it. And this is the way our houses ran. It's like, that's not going to work for you, because these kids aren't coming in from 10 years of background in your home. They're coming in from 10 years of who knows what.
Yeah.
So what you eat might change. Your nightly schedule might change. What you let them wear, what what things we let our kids wear versus things that we let them wear. It's going to be different.
Right.
It needs to be different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, I can't even, I've got 3 kids, and, you know, they've all, you know, same house, same parents, same genetic, you know, whatever. Couldn't be more different, all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's that like nature versus nurture, you know, age old question. But, you know, and I know in your in your reality, your world, there's a lot of environmental factors, you know, that come into it. I guess one of my curiosities would be, do foster parents get support? Like, is there that, again, my sphere of, you know, perspective on this is so limited. I have none. But we joke about our own kids all the time that they don't come with a handbook, you know, like there's no manual. This one didn't come with a manual. Like, I don't know, you know, how to handle situation A, B, or C. And that's daily, daily with all 3 kids. Like my wife and I we spend hours, you know, in the evenings, like talking about like, whatever it is. Yeah. Like, I had Dr. Doug Miller on. He would be a great guest for you, by the way. I could connect you if you want. But we did a whole podcast about parenting. He's a doctor of psychology, and he's one of my favorite people. He's a great guy, but did a whole podcast with him about parenting. And I learned so much about like, the different parenting styles and whatever. Then you introduce the complexity of the foster world and all of the nuance there. Do foster families get it? Like, is there a handbook? Is there support? Is there like, guidance of how to, because and again, we'll default to the understanding that everybody's who's doing it is doing it with great intentions.
Yeah.
Because I think
it's
whatever the exceptions are so minimal that, but talk about literally unlimited variables and complexities and situations. What's the support like?
Well, there's training beforehand, so you have to go through training. Training, I believe in the state right now is 27 hours. So it's 27 hours of pre-certification training. So, and the training's pretty great. It goes through, not everything. But the hard thing about it is, I always tell people, because I'm one of the trainers here for La Plata County, so I help train the foster families. But I always tell them at the end, like, hey, you've gone through these 24 hours now with me and 3 extra hours you got to do online of training, which has been great. But this is going to be like over your head at this point. You're drinking from a fire hose. The real training is going to come when these kids enter your home. And I almost wish they went through that same training like a year later because, and they do, they need ongoing training hours. So it's 20 to 32, depending on what type of parent, what type of foster family you are. But so they need ongoing hours every single year, which is great. But oftentimes you're just overwhelmed or you've got kids in your care. So you're taking like whatever training hours I can find versus doing what like you really need.
And halfway doing it because you're exhausted. Yeah.
Late at night trying to fit. The trainings have come so far from the time when we first got licensed. And there's this big acronym. It's called TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. Every foster parent knows about it now. We knew nothing about it when we first got licensed. And it completely changed our parenting and helped us dramatically once we figured out about it, probably 7 years into fostering and adopting. So it's come so far. But and above that, like I said, we live in a great place. La Plata County they put on support groups for their foster families twice a month right now, which is huge, where you even get training hours for that to go and sit and listen and help and say, this is what's going on in my home. How can you foster parent or like give me some advice here? And to be able to do that is huge too. So there's stuff like that for sure, but that's not everywhere. We've been a great place.
Right. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Are you in touch with like what's the dynamic post foster? And I know, we've kind of touched on the challenging situations where, they had to figure out a different environment or whatever. But I would also imagine that there's very close bonds, very close relationships that have been, built from this. What happens after?
Yeah. So when a kid leaves our home, I always give their usually it's their mom. I always say mom because that's typically who's in the picture. Not always, but usually it's the mom. Like 90% of the time it's the mom that we're dealing with. So I'll usually write the mom a letter and I give her my phone number and say, hey, we want to be a support to you. Some moms reach out, some don't. Some kids we know exactly where they're at and what they're up to today. Some kids will never know where they are. And that's hard to know.
I bet.
Like, oh, we have a whole list at home of all the kids that have been in our care. And every once in a while, one of our kids will just bring up, do you remember when so-and-so, talking 15 years ago. And there's like we had these sweet girls years ago. I mean, they were sassy, some really sassy, sweet girls, but they just tugged at our hearts. And they were with us for a whole summer. And we just loved these girls. They were 3 and 5. And we thought there was no way they were going home. Our caseworkers, nobody thought they were going home. And then they had court one day and the judge ruled that they went home. And it was completely shocking to us.
And it was abrupt. And unexpected.
Our kids, our own kids were away at camp at the time. This was during the summer, at the end of the summer. And they came home to these kids being gone. And they like sobbed that they didn't get to say goodbye. And then one little girl, she was 3. She would sit with me like in the morning. I'd do my makeup and stuff. She'd sit on my counter. And I had this little mirror. And her fingerprints were all over. And I still remember the day when one of my kids went in there being nice and cleaned my mirror for me. And I was like, you cleaned the mirror with her fingerprints. I mean, it tugs at your heart. It's really hard. And those girls, because I've become a Facebook sleuth, I was able to figure out who their mom was. I mean, I met their mom a couple times, but she didn't really have anything to do with me. But I figured out who she was, and I figured out who her sisters were, and I wrote down all their names. So this was over 10 years ago now. but I still have their names, and I'll still go online on Facebook and I can find them and I can see pictures of the girls like growing up. Just to be able to have that, because those, like I said, those girls really tugged at our hearts, and to just know, like, now they're 15 and 13 years old, but to be able to go and see, like, okay, they're doing.
And are you allowed to reach out, or it has to be them? It has to be one way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no like check-in.
I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't do anything to me if I reached out, but I know that this situation would not.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's the discretion there.
Yeah.
Are you in touch with any still? And I know you've adopted.
Yeah.
Some, right?
Yeah.
I just think it's so cool. I'm not sure that I could handle that.
Oh, you could.
Like because
you think of, like, these kids are going through the same thing. They're kids having to go through this. If the kids can go through it, you can as an adult.
True. I mean, we can do hard things.
It's not easy,
yes.
but yes.
We can do hard things. You're very right.
Yeah.
But it would be so challenging for me to like not stay invested.
Yes.
Yeah. And so so knowing that after the communication has to be sort of, I'll call it one way just to keep it easy. What, like, are there still ongoing relationships, or does the dynamic really change and it's more of a check-in?
Yeah, that's the one cool thing about teenagers. I would say probably 90% of the teenagers that we've had, we know where they are. We're in contact with them because teenagers have their own phones. They have, the social media.
Right.
And they'll start following us. We don't let them do that while they're in our home, but then when they leave, if they want to be my friend on Facebook or Instagram, follow me. Sure, they'll let you follow me. I had the sweetest thing happen. So again, I'm talking one of our very first cases, our first case of teenagers. We had these 2 teenage girls with us again for a summer. And we were like no teenagers. We were absolutely no kids. Our kids were getting older, but we were like no kids older than our oldest. And they were much older than our oldest. And they changed our hearts for older kids when we had these 2 teenage girls, the first teenagers in our house. But we just poured into them and loved on them and supported them through some hard things they were going through. Then they went on with grandma after the summer. And years later, one of them gets pregnant and is getting married. And she finds me on Facebook and she sends me a message saying, "Hey, you've been like the most influential mom in my life. Would you mind if I follow you? And could you kind of mentor me through this?" We didn't live in the same state even at this point, but she started asking me questions about pregnancy, questions about being a mom. And we still now I'm friends with her sister on Facebook. Yeah. And get to watch them and see them be moms, both of them. It's just pretty cool when that happens, stuff like that.
What does that feel like? Like 70 kids, and I know you're raising 9, which 6 are adopted, right? Yep. Which, what does that feel like?
So fulfilling, overwhelming. Not gonna lie, it is overwhelming, but it's fulfilling. It's very fulfilling. Like I said, joking with my husband, 27 kids, and now we're like, oh, we're past that now.
Yeah.
Would never, ever, ever, ever thought. And again, every year it's like, do we keep doing this? And we have friends sometimes they're like, you guys, you give so much, you need to take a break or stop. And so one time that happened, we moved from North Dakota, Colorado to Fort Collins 8 years ago now. And when we moved, we were like, we are done. Like, we've adopted at that point. We had 7 kids. So we had adopted 4 kids. We had 4 adopted kids. We had fostered for years. Like, we're done. We're over this. We've given our time.
We've done
done our part, moved to a new state. We were living in a much smaller house. And our daughter, who was probably 12 at the time, she wrote us a letter and it was like, "Mom and Dad, we are all willing to share bedrooms. We're all willing to share our toys. This is something that you guys told us was a lifelong thing. Did it just go away? Like, you said this was a calling in our life. Is that calling just gone now?" And cut us to the core. A 12-year-old daughter writing us this letter. And so
that's what you get.
And she had all of her siblings sign it. They all wrote their names, signed them up on our pillow at night. I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So we had a family meeting. We chatted about it. And the kids were like, what are we doing? This really has been what we do. Like, we, again, like those foster families, you see that quit after a while. And some great reasons, right? But it's hard. But to be able to keep foster families that have experience and having that experience in the system is really what makes the biggest change, right. I believe.
Right.
And so that was 8 years ago and got relicensed, and here we are.
I saw I saw a thing on Instagram the other day. We're in our youth sports era at my house, and basically what it said is like a youth sport coach will impact more lives in a season than most will impact, in a lifetime. I can't, what is it? Have you ever had that moment of like the step back and the reflection and again, I'm obviously know how, challenging the road is, and, all of that stuff. But like I think about if I look at my priorities, like my sphere of my world, the only thing that really matters is that I raise good kids. Anything else is bonus points.
Sure.
And I feel like it's a responsibility and an obligation, and I take it very seriously, like because they're going to go out in the world and impact countless lives themselves. And, it's the whole reason I'm here,
Yeah.
to be a good dad and raise those kids. Have you ever had that moment of, like, I don't know, stepping back and seeing the kids, the amount of lives you've impacted and contemplated the impact of that? Do you ever let yourself think about that?
Not fully, probably not. I don't know how long it'll take to get there. But I think that's why, like, just recently, because we've had some really hard kids in a row. When we moved to La Plata County, we were leveled up as therapeutic home. So that means we take the kids that are almost always teenagers who have usually mental health things that are kind of next level. And so these past 2 years have been pretty challenging on our family. And we've been kind of like, oh, do we keep doing this? Our friends are saying, maybe you guys need to take a break. But then we sit back down and we look again at, like, this is what we know. This is what our family knows. Like, and not that we've got it all together. We do not have it all together. We are still learning all the time. But I look at our county, I'm like, no, people aren't stepping up. Like, we need foster homes in our community, and we need experienced foster homes. There's, like, pretty much none of those, and not that we have to do it, but it is just like that motivation to keep going and to say, but we can say no to certain placements. And that's my biggest thing, kind of going back to that whole business model of being able to say no to people, or choosing, right? Like, smaller and deeper rather than wide and shallow, right? And I tell foster parents that all the time, the new foster parents, you don't have to say no to or yes to a placement. Like, you can say no. And when they give you that call, I challenge you to really sit down and think, like, do we have the bandwidth with our time, with our emotions, with all of it? Like, do we have the bandwidth right now to say yes to this kid? Because our hope is that it's a commitment to that kid as long as they need.
Yeah, you're all in.
And if you can't, then say no. And so we've learned that, we used to say yes to everything. Like, yes. And then it burned us out.
Yeah.
And we just told our caseworker, we're to the point now where don't expect us to say yes every time. Like, we're not going to say yes. Doesn't mean we're not stopping fostering right now, but we are going to have to look at each case very individualized and say, is this best for our family right now?
If somebody's listening and they're, curious or interested, I mean, what would be a first step for, somebody who's even starting to think about it?
I would sit down with somebody for coffee, dinner, that's been a foster parent or is a foster parent, and ask them questions. I wouldn't even go to the county first. I love our county, but I would not go to the county first. I would go to current or old foster parent and ask them her questions.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be hopefully very honest with you, and you'll really know what it's going to be like before you go to the county. Again, they're not going to talk you into it, but the county's going to be like, oh, great, we got another person. Let's start this process. I want you to be ready and prepared to say, like, yeah, we're ready for this.
Is that why, is that, because, I know that you're doing a lot of the recruitment and retention, through your job. I mean, would you be
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And is that kind of where you guys work in, is making sure that people are a good fit and set up for success before you're formally engaging with the county, or how does that work?
Yeah. So we are not a placing agency. We don't place kids. We don't license families, but we help equip families. So whether they are looking into fostering or they're already fostering, we want to support them. We just have a brand new initiative that's coming out here very shortly. It's called Fostering Front Door, where we have taken questions over, our organization's 10 years old. We've taken the questions we've got over 10 years, and we put together an amazing database website of people just being able to get all these questions answered. And there's blog posts, but there's blog posts and podcasts and all these things answered. So you can get all these things answered before you go to a county. And then we say, go to a county, ask these, and we give them a list of questions, like ask them these questions, and just really guiding them. So it's not just blindly walking into this.
Right.
And then once they're fostering, we also do something called FosterCon, which is like our ongoing webinars that are free. I'm the host of them, which I love doing them. It's super fun. So just over years, and people are always asking me questions, we put together webinars that we know foster families need, and they're free, and they're for CE credit. So again, foster families need credit every single year.
Right.
So it's a way to get credit that are for questions people are actually asking and things that they want to know, rather than let's just go check a box and get some training. Let's get some good training.
Right. Yeah. So. It seems like such a Well, it just seems like for somebody who has that like call to serve, or it obviously there's a need, and it's so cool to talk to you and see, I don't know, your stories, and I think what's most telling about it is your kids' responses
Mm,
to it.
yeah.
Like you talked about the podcast with them, but then a 12-year-old girl writing a letter, that's insightful. I mean, that is stronger evidence than, any answer you could give on a podcast.
Definitely. But it's not going, again, it's not all peaches and roses. I mean, we did have our son that just turned 15. We've had our long-term placements over the last couple of years have been boys his age. Like every single one of them have been boys his age. And our kids give a lot. And people ask us all the time, how do you keep fostering for so long? Our answer is always our kids. Hands down, the first answer is our kids. Because when a kid comes into our door, we imagine this, usually in the evening, usually it's in the evening or late at night, a kid walks into our door, complete strangers welcoming them at the door.
Terrified.
They're going to feel way more comfortable with our kids than they are with Bobby and I,
Right.
Standing there at the door, asking them questions or getting to know them. So usually when kids enter our door, it's like, we give them time to just go be with our kids. And some of them will just connect right away. Some of them will be by themselves, but we don't just jump on them right away in the sense of asking questions. And but our kids do so much of that work. And so it's tiring for our kids. And our 15-year-old, he came to us after the latest one went home, sweet reunification story, where it was great to be part of that. But then he's like, Mom, Dad, I'm tired of teenage boys. I
don't blame him.
They want my energy. When we have a kid that's like the same age as one of our kids, same sex and same age as one of our kids, that's probably the hardest we have found over the years.
Yeah.
Because they just they want to be with them all the time. It takes so much of their time and energy. And so after it had been 3 boys in a row of that same age, we looked at the county and we said, we need a break from teenage boys.
Right.
But we'll take a teenage girl, we'll take whatever, but teenage boys, we need a break.
Yeah.
And so hearing our kids in that too, we need to be receptive to that as parents and willing to be like, we hear you, we see you,
Right.
like making our kids feel like they have a voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Courtney, thank you so much. There's I have a gift for you. There's a tradition here. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but these are my Inspire by Example shirts. Because because you're inspiring by example.
Thanks.
But I don't know. To open up your home for so long to so many, and the way you're raising your core family with it is remarkable. And it's inspiring. And so, obviously thank you for giving me time today and for, letting me pick your brain and learn from you and stuff. And if anybody's listening, and just so you know too, I'll link your website, your contact information, social media, all that stuff in the show notes. So, we can spread the good word, and, I don't have a massive audience, but it's something, and, get the word out there a little bit. But it's a perfect example of like literally inspiring by example and living it, because, and I hope you take a minute and like actually take a moment to reflect on the ripple effect because of, you opening your door. Cause like, I mean, obviously all the people that you've impacted individually, but the changes you've impacted with them, and then how that impacts the world and their spheres of influence and all of that stuff, it's remarkable. So on a larger level, thank you. And I just can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation, and opening up my eyes to a whole new world and getting to see what you do. And the world needs more people like that. So anyway, thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
It's been great.